Hello, this is Ironlich W, and this week I decided to bring Ironlich Asphyxious. I heard my opponent mention that he never played them in the past, so I decided to bring out P-Asphyxious to give him the appropriate welcome. I tried to make an appropriate, well-rounded list with threat options with Malice and Reaper, 2 arc nodes because Asphyxious is the classic assassination caster through spell slinging, as well as good hitting power and melee with the Bane Knights. But the most critical element of this list is probably going to be the Blood Witches and the UA. The UA's ability of Entropic Force, which shuts down Tough in her command range, is going to be critical for whatever I try to go after first.
Greetings everybody, Taodark here. This week I'm going to be running my Madrak list again, still trying to work out some of the kinks on it with placement and such. It's the same one I've run before, double warders and champions. It's a lot of beef, and Madrak really tunes up their mat to deal with stuff like statistics raiders. I do have some concerns about the reach weapons masters and my lack of experience in how they interact with Lich 1, but we'll see how it turns out in this game.
For Crick's deployment, I put the Helljacks in the middle of the board, that way they'd be able to reach both flags. I put the Bane Knights on the right side because the Bane Knights I felt would be able to deal with both the rough terrain and the linear obstacle having Ghostly. I put Arc Node on both sides of the board, the Machine Wraith on the far right since I didn't expect them to have a whole lot of impact on the game. And then I put the Blood Witches on the far left, that way they'd have both the Force to give them concealment as well as the linear obstacle early, and put them within striking distance of popping their mini feet and hiding around the left flag. And then Asphyxious is in the middle behind the 2 Helljacks, as is the Wither Shadow Combine.
My deployment's relatively standard as when I ran it before. We're going to put warders on each side, and then the champions down the center, with the Stone and Madrak taking center point, and his beasts on either side of him. I decided to put the Mulg on the right side because I'm not a huge fan of running Mulg near reach weapons masters. Though they have Ghostly, I'm hoping to use the obstruction to help keep him alive a little longer. That and he'll be able to reach and hopefully crusher through the statistics raiders, and then also deal with the 2 heavies that are on my right hand side.
For Crick's turn 1, I allocate opponent focus to all 4 jacks. I start by activating the Reaper and having him run his full 12 inches to get as close to the middle of the board as possible. I then activate Malice and have him run just a little bit behind the Reaper. I activate the Nightwretch and he runs to my objective, and then the Blood Witches activate and they run close to my friendly objective as well, trying to get them in position to use their mini feet on the next turn ideally. I activate the Skarlock and I run home just behind Malice, not too sure what I want him to do quite yet. Then I activate the Bane Knights and have them run up as far as I can. I know on my next turn I'm really going to have to try and spread them out so they're not next to each other for P-Madrak's feet. After that I have a Deathripper run up just to put a threat on the right side, and I have the Siren follow him as she will be his focus battery. Machine Wraith runs and tries to get to the hill but falls short. Then I use Asphyxious, activate him, move him to the nearby linear obstacle, and Arc of Breath of Corruption, really to be annoying to my opponent. Since he is using warders, I know 1 point damage is not going to do nothing to them. Tartarus runs, but not as far as he can, just to get in a position. Then the Wither Shadow Combine runs up.
Troll's turn 1. So I'm looking at the movements and noticing that he's kind of got a majority of his forces on his left-hand side, my right-hand side. So I activate my warriors and run them up, and then follow suit with my Runebearer to put down the once a game spell, using Surefoot on the warders. It's relatively standard for me. Activate the other unit of warders, and I'm really kind of hesitant on those Bane Knights, so I don't necessarily advance them up as far as I could. I think I only went like 6 inches, maybe 7 inches, which it's probably not the best thing. I mean, with their slow speed, you really just need to push them and push them hard. and then take it on the chin and hope that you survive it. I'm noticing the arc nodes, and I know that Lich can technically spell assassinate me, so I'm kind of curious as to getting familiar with the ranges of the arc nodes, how far they're going to move up next turn, and where Madrak needs to be. And because there's really only a wall within range, I only move him like an inch forward and dump everything into the stone. My movements this turn really are very reserved and held back. The stone barely advances up, just getting behind the wall, which causes the rest of the unit not to move up, which causes the champions to get clogged up. And it's, looking back on the video now, I kind of realized that it was a poor turn one for me. I just was not getting up the board, just because I was so concerned about the spell assassination and the weapon master charges and everything. I continue with my normal formations of having a ward beast behind the warders, so that whatever crashes into the warders, the war beast can deal with later. It's not necessarily a good move to be as reserved as I was in this turn.
For Crick's turn 2, I look at the movements my opponent made, decide I want to go after the left warders, and get rid of the Breath of Corruption that I don't care about anymore. I allocate 2 points of focus to the Reaper and a point of focus to Malice, with the intent of dragging some of the warders forward and trying to get a soul on Malice. I first activate the Nightwretch and I have him advance to the far side of the flag, with the intent of getting him to about 7 inches away from the warders. I don't want to get him any closer than he needs to be. Then I activate the Withershot Combine, have them advance up, and put puppet strings on Asphyxious so he doesn't miss on his spell slinging when I need him to. He has a tendency to do that for me. So after Withershot Combine are done, I activate the Skarlock, he moves up and casts Sighting Touch on the witches just to make him look deadlier. Then Banelord Tartarus activates and he runs up. I don't want to get him too close though, so I don't run his full distance. I then proceed to activate Asphyxious, have him move up, and then he casts Parasite through the Nightwretch I ran up onto the warder unit on the left. I successfully hit the warder unit and they now have -3 armor. So after Asphyxious is done, the Reaper activates and he advances his full 6 into base to base with the flag. Using the distance measurement I had from the Nightwretch, I know I'm in range, and the Reaper ends up hitting the ward that's closest to him, which happens to be out of the stone, so he doesn't have an armor bonus. The Reaper ends up dragging the warder into base to base with the flag and kills the warder. My intent was for the warder to actually pass his tough check and have him give Malice a soul, but my opponent failed his tough check. First time I wanted my opponent to pass a tough check. After the Reaper killed the warder, I went ahead and activated the Blood Witch, deciding that this is the time to use the mini feat. So they pop the mini feat and they give the run charge order. One witch fails a charge and the rest run into position. I still try to maintain a relatively loose formation because I know P-Madrak's feat can be devastating to infantry heavy armies. I then activate Malice and I have him move up. I figure the Malice will try and get the other warder, hopefully get a soul of Malice that way. So I end up hitting the warder. He's in range of Malice as well. But this particular warder was in range of the stone, so he got extra armor. And I had a pretty bad dice roll, so I didn't get to drag him in. So attempt 2 to get soul on Malice failed. And after Malice was done, I activated the Machine Wraith. He just jumped on the hill just to look threatening. Big sign that says, "Hey, look at me." Then the Bane Knights ran. I ran the first 2 Bane Knights a greater distance than the rest because I wanted to use them as bait, trying to trick my opponent into activating Vengeance. Then I activated the Siren, who moved up, and then I activated the Deathripper and moved them back. I didn't want to have both my arc nodes tied up.
Troll's turn 2. Already I'm starting to notice that my apprehension last turn is going to cause me issues this game. He's pushed up pretty far, which I'm used to being with double warders. I'm used to being relatively slow and having my opponent get a better board position than I. But that's kind of why I kind of look at Crusher as the ability to reverse that board position and get me further up the field. However, my opponent has not fed me as much troops. You know, he's pushed some forward so that there's a threat, but it's not to the point where I have enough where I feel like I'm going to get a good Crusher turn. If I were to pop Crusher now, my feat's really only going to get me, you know, 4 or 5 of the Styxis Raiders and 2 or 3 of the Bane's Knights. And I don't think that it's going to allow me to continue chaining through and to getting to some of the pieces that I need to, like the majority of the Bane units or Tartarus or any of the Jacks. So my Runebearer turns around and it activates doing Harmonious Exaltation. I also dropped Surefoot off of my Far Warder unit, and that's because the member of the Wither Shadow Combine that can disbind is not terribly far from where that unit is. So if I didn't drop it and save the Fury, it was most likely going to be dropped through disbinding anyways on the following turn. So I'm kind of just advancing up, trying to figure out where I'm going to go. I advance up the Champions unit to provide me the wall that I don't have, so that the stone can advance forward. I'd like to use the stone's ability with a Spirit Chaser to remove the Incorporeal off of the mini feat from the Styxis, so that the warders can do something about the few that are there. And then also just to drive the armor buff and the strength buff forward. And then just kind of shifting things around so that Madrak has a whole next turn, because I'm going to need Madrak's Carnage to help with dealing with the Styxis defense. The advancing, like I check in my control area, and it, you know, once I moved Madrak up and I checked the control area, it was set in stone. I knew that I was going to have to go for a turn 3 feat turn. It wasn't going to happen this turn. So I go into a little bit of recovery mode. Basically, I am now doing in this turn what I should have done in first turn, which is just put myself out there so that a couple of the guys take it on the chin, and then the rest of the army retaliates. So now I've basically, because of my turn 1 reservations, I'm now a turn behind on the game. So we're going to start there with Warder's activation. I kind of question if I can pull off one of the Warder charges on the Bane Knights, so we use a proxy base and a laser to confirm. I do manage to get the charge off, and then I just use the rest of the Warner units to go after some of the Styxis. This is in part because I didn't think I was going to get my 4th Warder into the Styxis line, but also if I intersperse members of the Warder units with the Bane Thralls retaliation attack from the Bane Knights. Retaliation attack might allow me to get battle driven on the unit before the Styxis activate, which will make their job harder to try and kill those warders. But that relies on my opponent not seeing that, not damaging the member of the Warder unit with the Bane Knights before the Styxis activate. Activating the 2nd Warder unit, I'm going to have to toss out some for just to give him something to chew on. But what I'm doing is on the 2nd Warder that I moved, is I'm advancing him in such a way that he'll have the flag to somewhat clog up Bane Knight charges. They have reach, so obviously they're going to be reaching over the flag, but by putting the flag there, I am making sure that he's not going to have a Bane Knight in base to base, and then another one right behind him, giving him more charges. I'm just trying to use the flag to mitigate, and then the objective to also protect the warders that are a little further back. Chronicler activates, drops Hero's Tragedy, because I know I'm going to be losing warders next turn, and you know, I hate losing multi-wound units, but if I can get a knockdown, that's better than nothing, I guess. Axer activates and advances over, because I'm going to need to use him next turn for Mulg to give him some speed. To make sure that the Mulg isn't dragged next turn, I activate the champion and advance him behind one of the stone members, and then I activate Mulg and advance him behind the champion. This way, both the Reaper and Malice can't chain drag Mulg in.
For Crick's turn 3, I went ahead and started with my vengeance moves. My opponent did kill a couple of Bane Knights as I wanted him to, so I just end up moving them up, trying in position so I can try and attack the entire warrior unit at one time. I didn't do any actual attacks as I did not want to trigger battle driven quite yet. Asphyxious upcut Parasite, and then I allocated 2 focus to the Reaper as well as 2 focus to Malice. My intent was to try and wipe out the first warrior unit on the left and then focus my efforts on a warrior unit on the right. I know I need to get rid of as many warders as possible before my opponent pops his feet and have them go munching through all my infantry. So I activate with the Skarlock first and have him recast Scything Touch onto the Blood Witches. Then I activate the Blood Witches and have them give the order to charge. Not all the Blood Witches actually get 3 inches, so I make charges where I can, and then I run a few of them, keeping the Blood Hag where she is in the back because she's in a good position. I want to keep her there. With Scything Touches and Gang, the Blood Witches will be POW 14, which is respectable. And so then as I start making attacks, I manage to kill the first warder, and I do Blood Mist, so it creates a little 3-inch cloud and removes the warder from play. The second warder that I'll end up killing, I unfortunately don't kill with the Blood Razor. I end up killing him with the horns of all things. So unfortunately I didn't get my second cloud, but I will go ahead and settle for 1 less warder. The clouds would have helped me as they would have started blocking line of sight to some of the units behind them other than the witches. I'm just trying to prepare for my opponent's feat because I know the next turn is probably going to happen. So then I move up the Nightwretch and just adjust them slightly. It doesn't really do anything else. And then the Wither Shadow Combine activate and they move, casting Puppet Strings on Malice. So then I activate Malice and I go ahead and have him shoot the nearby warder. He's in range and Malice stood still, so he gets the aiming bonus. And because I put 2 focus on him this time, I was able to boost attacks and really drag him in there. And so this time I plan to get a soul on Malice, worked out handsomely. The real reason I really want to put souls on Malice as quick as possible is because I know if anything is going to kill Mulg, it would have to be Malice. And Malice can use the focus, or use the souls as focus. So then I activate the Reaper after Malice, then he advances, and since he doesn't really have anything to attack, he goes ahead and takes a shot at the stone. I figure if I can knock out one of the stone guys, I go ahead and make the little aura smaller. Unfortunately, my opponent passes his tough check. But stone's not moving next turn because he's got sack movement or action, so I guess I can't complain. Then I have Tartarus advance up, and he'll end up cursing the second warder unit as the first one was knocked down to 1. So I have the left side cleared of warders at this point. So I'm thinking scenario, but anyhow, continue with Tartarus. He moves up, he curses, he goes ahead and swings on the second warder without threshing because I don't want to hit my own guys. And he does end up doing some damage, not as much as I hoped. But I can't control the dice. Then I go ahead and activate the Deathripper. I think I'm going to advance him up just because I know I want to start casting some spells out to the second warder unit. I intentionally left 1 warder unengaged so it would be easier to get spells on him. Then I activate Asphyxious. He casts Scything Touch on the Bane Knights. just because I knew I needed the extra POW. Then he casts Parasite onto the second unit of warders. So now that second unit of warders has -3 armor. Also mentioned that this was Asphyxious' feat turn, as he used most of his focus to give to the Jax and popped his feet to start casting spells. Then the Bane Knights activated and they go ahead and take the order to charge. So I try and spread out the Bane Knights, putting 2 per warder, because I know I need to take out as many of them as possible. And so everyone does get charges, however not everyone gets a charge bonus. So with the Scything Touch and a Parasite, I was able to change my opponent's armor, drop it by 3, then increase my POW by 2. So I was able to get rid of most of his defensive mechanics, such as the armor from Battle Driven and the stone, and make the warders a little more killable. So at the end of all the Bane Knight attacks, I managed to kill 4 warders, leaving the second warder down to 1 guy. So I now have a single guy from both units, which is manageable. At this point, I'm thinking I might have a good shot at going by scenario, as I got 1 point the previous turn. Or we'll get at least 1 point this turn. It doesn't look like my opponent is going to have a whole lot to get that left flag back. So I think I'm probably changing my mindset into somewhat of a more defensive tactic instead of trying to win by assassination. At the end of the Bane Knights, my opponent points out that those who did kill warders are knocked down because the Chronicler cast some cheating troll spell on them, or did something, I don't remember off the top of my hand. Anyhow, after the Bane Knights are done, Machine Wraith moves up and runs and just to be annoying, and then the Siren moves up and proceeds to spray the remaining warder. So it does 1 point damage and puts corrosion on him.
Troll's turn 3. So, lesson learned, Parasite plus Scything Touch, delta of 5 on my armor, gonna have a bad time with my warders. So, you learn as you play, I guess. It was a unique experience to be told that, the warders that you love to build up to armor 21 aren't that tough anymore. But live and learn. I'm looking at the table, and I've realized that the right-hand side of the table, my right-hand side of the table, is completely gotten away from me. This is obviously going to be a feat turn for me, so I'm going to need to get some things like the Stone and Madrak in position for Carnage and the Strength, and that's going to, because of how I've kind of clustered myself in the center, I've actually really messed with my own activation orders, so I'm kind of going through some things. Ideally, I would like to apply Mulg to Malice, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get to that point. At the bare minimum, I know I need to contest the flag, and I'd like to at least get the Reaper taken care of. But the way that the Asphyxious are laid out, it's not necessarily drawing a line to Malice, so I'm going to go through some other activations to figure that out. Activate the stone unit, and the stone pulls himself back, so that way there's an access for Madrak to get around. Again, trying to uncluster myself. I still need to provide the strength, but I need to get Madrak in position in order for him to extend the crusher range, or the feat range out, as well as Carnage. So he activates, he moves up, I put him into a position where I can get those abilities out there, and then since he can actually throw his axe, and he gains the axe gains the benefit of the stone, I'm going to go ahead and toss that out. So I pop my feet, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to throw axe at. I know I'm going to go after the statistics next to me, but I'd like to clear out some of the Banes on the left hand side to help the one warder and the champions to deal with all of those Banes. So the first thing I do is I throw out the Styxis next to me. Ideally, maybe I probably should have left her out there, because that would have given me one more target for Mulg to charge into to get some distance, and would have allowed me to potentially get further in. We get the laser pointer because he's got Snapfire. We get the laser pointer, and I want to see if I even have line of sight to declare the Snapfire on the Bane next to the flag. And it was determined that I don't, so I just opt for throwing the axe at the Reaper to put some damage into it, so that Mulg doesn't have to put too much effort into putting it into the ground. Dice roll comes up, wasn't exactly spectacular, but damage is damage. Take it where you can get it. So I sit on a couple to transfers so that I have something for next turn. He's behind the obstruction, but with ghostly and stuff like that, an obstruction is a false protective barrier. So I activate the champion. The champion charges in, just trying to get some more damage out there. He goes after Styxis and then advances up on the Reaper to kill the Reaper. Again, like the last one, might have been better for me just to charge the Reaper directly and leave more Styxis for Mulg to use to advance up the board. Axer activates, puts Rush on Mulg, because Mulg's going to need the extended +2 in order to get downtown and use Crusher, or participate in the Crusher feat. So he charges the one Styxis that he can see in the cloud. I advance up, and basically we're going to use a proxy base. Mulg's club always gets in the way. It's better just to use a proxy base for during the feat turn. And this is where he's going to start going through. Ideally, I can use a Styxis to advance me up so that I can get in range of Malice. At some point, I'm going to need to take a free strike because of the position of the Reaper. But I should be able to, with the armor 21, should be able to take that free strike relatively with ease. It shouldn't cripple any of my systems since he's still fresh. However, in my advancing, I want to try and be tricky and get as many. Basically, I want to get greedy. I want to go after kill as many of the Styxis as I can, and in doing so, I mess with how I'm going to move Crusher. In a good positioning, I should have just Crushered straight forward. You know, forget the 3 or 4 Styxis on the side, forget the Light Jack on the side, and just Crusher straight forward towards Malice. But that didn't necessarily play out the way, because I wanted to be janky with my movements and try and get distance to the Styxis, and in doing so, not only do I take that free strike I know is going to happen, but I actually position myself in such a way that I have ended my movements. I don't have my line of sight on the Reaper anymore. I am like just a quarter of an inch outside of the Styxis, and I end my activation. Unfortunately, with Mulg standing out in the open. So the champions activate, and I'm going to use the champions to get in there and clear up the warder, because I want to use the warder next to Madrak in order to get towards Tartarus. That's his end goal, and then also just to clear up some of the thralls that are next to Madrak, because that would be bad. So champions activate. I don't necessarily use the Crusher feat turn to advance him up, the overtake of Crusher to advance him up, because I want to leave them there as a wall to protect Madrak. And then I activate the one lone warder that's on the what was part of my left-hand unit, staying out of the far Bane's reach. And this is something that's happened a couple of times. A single warder under Carnage and then also under the feet turn is something you can't ignore. I mean, having a whole unit is amazing, but even one warder can still do a lot of damage on the Crusher feet turn. So he's going through, and he's now contesting the flag. What I probably should have done is I did move and took a swing on the Warwitch and missed. But had I hit, what I actually should have done is move my 1 inch forward, swung on the Warwitch, and then moved another inch and gone after the light, just to try and maximize his activation. Because as a single warder, he won't be long for this world. Next, I activate my Chronicler, and for those who have never experienced Troll support isn't just support. They can actually do work. And even though he is outside of the Crusher feet turn, he still manages to hit and kill the Bane. So the last warder of my far right unit activates, and again, like I said, I was clearing him up so that I could use the Crusher turn to chain into Tartarus. I was really hoping that if I can get into range, I can take Tartarus out. So I do manage to kill those two, get in range of Tartarus. I do hit, but the damage that I did was not enough to kill him. So he is still a player on the table. And then the Runebearer activates and puts Surefoot on Madrak.
For Crick's turn 4, we'll try to upcat Parasites. And then Asphyxious allocated 3 focus to Malice and 2 to the Reaper. My opponent did pop his feet as I expected, and it did do a lot of damage. He managed to wipe out my entire unit of Bane Knights. I was really hoping to have 1 left alive. Alright, so I have Malice, or I have Mulg right where he's in a good position to get attacked by Malice, who has effectively 5 focus with the 2 souls. So I activate the Reaper first to start the turn, try and get him out of the way, and then he proceeds to throw out a couple attacks. He does do some damage, and he is, just because he's in range, he's going to go ahead and swing on Madrak a little. He does some damage, but some is better than none. So I spend most of my turn just figuring out, like, I gotta zero out Mulg right now, because if he lives, he's gonna wreck everything. So then I activate Tartarus, and I have him run, just because I want to get the Dark Shroud on Mulg. Then I have the Skarlock activate, advances up a little bit, and puts Scything Touch on Malice, try and get up Malice's POW. And then with the Shadow Combine, they advance, and then they activate, they advance and put Puppet Strings on Malice. So I'm really putting a lot of effort into make sure that Malice kills Mulg. So then Malice activates and he charges Mulg. And it takes just about every single swing and trick that I put on Malice to make sure that Mulg dies. He had -2 from Dark Shroud. Malice had +2 from Scything Touch, plus Puppet Strings to reroll a damage or a missed hit. I put essentially 90% of my army into getting rid of Mulg. I'm beginning to think once again about scenario. If I'm able to get rid of Mulg, and I can make sure that Madrak can't get to Asphyxious, that I should be able to claim 2 more points from Asphyxious dominating. So once Mulg dies, I activate the Blood Witches, who take the order to charge. The Blood Witches charging isn't really to kill anything, it's more or less just to put bodies on Madrak and try and disrupt any way of him stopping me from dominating the zone. So I charge 1 Blood Witch into Madrak, and I run the other one just so I get the gang bonus. So the Blood Witches do hit on the charge attack, and they do some damage to Madrak. Not enough to make him transfer at this point, but just enough to knock it down. Or he does transfer one of the hits from the melee attack. So then once Blood Witches are done, I activate the Deathripper and have him move up just to bite the one ward in the area. There's not much that the Deathripper is going to be doing at this point, as I plan to run Asphyxious. So after Deathripper is done, the Siren attacks, or she advances and then attacks the other warder, and then misses, of course. Being Nat 5, she doesn't hit very many things. But hindsight is, I'm thinking I probably should have tried Seduction just to move him around and knock out the Chronicler, who's right next to him, it seems like. And then I run Asphyxious with his 3 focus to the objective.
Troll's turn 4. I am in a bit of a bind. He's up to 3 control points, and his caster is sitting on the objective. So at the end of this turn, he will go to 5 and win the game. My only hope is pulling off some sort of super spike damage assassination. We're talking triple sixes. So I'm going through activations. Obviously, the first thing I need to do is I need to find a way of killing Asphyxious. The Axer won't be able to get far enough downtown in order to get to Asphyxious, so I'm really left with my only option is Madrak's Axe. Check to see if with my control range to see if it's even possible. It is. So the first thing I'll do is activate. He puts up a Harmonious Exaltation on Madrak. And then I am going to activate the Axer, and the Axer is basically going to go in and try and clear up Madrak so that when he does move to get in position to go after Asphyxious, he's not going to take 3 free strikes from the Styxis that are there, and also provides him a hole for Madrak to stand in so that he can get line of sight on Asphyxious. So he advances up, and I'm basically just checking my melee range, make sure everybody's in it, and the Madrak is out, and then I am going to go ahead and Thresher with it. So confirming what the defense is of the Styxis. Hit and killed, and then going after the other Styxis, the other one that's where I'd like to put Madrak. Boosting, hit, and kill. And on the Reaper, which I miss. So I activate my warders, and I go after the Warwitch, just trying to give myself some time to think, and I came down to the conclusion that no matter what I did on the left-hand side, it wasn't going to change the game state in any way, shape, or form. I just needed to go after Asphyxious. It was the only chance I had. So, ignoring the other activations, I go ahead and activate the stone to give Madrak the +1 since his throwing axe benefits from the strength. We halt the measurement so that the Reaper can get its free strike, which it misses, confirming that I have line of sight, which I do, and then I turn around and throw my axe. It's a shot in the dark, but it's the only one I've got, so you might as well take it. And since this is a game-winning throw, I'm going to boost the hit, and then I'm going to boost the damage, praying for just tons of 6s across the board. And I do not get it. So there's not really much I can do, and the Crick will dominate on the next turn, getting 5 points.